where I can record this. So, hey, Walter.
Hey, Jeff.
I got to tell you, there is something really strange about this. I have a new respect for guys that actually do shows because they instantly turn this, okay, now we're doing the show. And yeah, I kind of feel like that's what I have to do. But uh, and thank you for coming back. So the whole reason for doing this again is because the last time I could hear you fine. If somebody was just listening to it like a podcast, it was great. But
Right.
if they wanted to watch what you were doing, it was,
Man, it's like, the internet, it's moody,
right.
Some days it's perfect, some other days it's just not happening.
It's moody. In other words, you're telling me that uh, the internet is kind of like me. one, one, one day I wake up and I just, man, I feel like melted butter over pancakes, and the next day I feel like, oh my God, somebody stepped on me in the grass because.
That's awesome, man. But it's, you know what, Jeff, it's the reality of our days, and we just have to deal with it, you know,
Right.
and move on, not pay much attention, do your best, and let it be.
Right. Well, uh, on our last show, there were some people that watched it, but let's just remind people of. I want everyone to know that might tune into this. The
Okay.
things you are doing in the recording world, in the movies, just revisit that for a minute. All of the sessions you were doing with Michael Giacchino and those kinds of things.
Okay. So basically, I remember because I was thinking about this right
Hmm.
before we connected. Um, e- Everything stems out, at least the way I see it, everything stems out or off my faith, and which is why it was all connected. That was the first opportunity I had, when I came. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. So when I came in 1991, I went to school, and after I finished school, the first thing I was able to do was to play at church, you know. And parentheses, all my students know this. Any person, when I do either a clinic or anything that I'm doing, people ask me, so what's the best thing? What do you suggest you do? You say, you know what? Get connected with a church, because there's so many benefits out of church. You play. If anything, you're playing constantly in a for at least until this coronavirus thing happened.
Right.
But you were able to, you were able to play constantly in front of an audience, the congregation at that point, and so you keep your chops. It's another way. So it's just like playing a concert or playing at a club. Now you're playing in front of audience. For me, it was also a way to when it comes to faith, it comes, it took it to a whole different level. And like I said on the first interview, it's all for me. My belief in Jesus as my Savior and Lord, that is everything. From that point on, then, for example, to answer your question, that's how I connected with Alex Acuna, and Alex slowly started me introducing to different people. Back then I was Alex Cartage. I would do Alex Cartage, and so I was able to go to different studios, and so that way you met other people. Um, I met composers. I met people that all of a sudden maybe some dates that Alex couldn't do, he would send me.
Oh, nice.
Eventually, that's how I connected with Michael Giacchino. And that was, I'm going to say, back in 2002. And the first thing I did with Michael was, uh, it was actually the official first date with Michael was the Incredibles video game. I did not play on the movie, but I played on the video game.
Mm.
And and then after that, we did Mission Impossible. I believe it was the third one, and I came in as a sub as well in that one. And then from that point on, it was pretty much I've done about 90 to 95% of any Michael Giacchino project. I've recorded, I've tracked.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, and I just recall that I didn't ask you. So, did you grew up in Puerto Rico?
I was born and raised in Puerto Rico.
And when did you leave?
I moved out. I was 21. The reason I moved out was because I wanted to come to Musicians Institute here
Oh,
in
right, right.
Hollywood.
You
And
may have said that, but I just, for some reason, I'm going like, wow,
you know, that's good.
did we talk about what it was like to grow up in Puerto Rico?
We did not touch that, man. That was that's a whole different a whole different interview. No, we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, my dad. I think I did mention
Hmm.
that my dad is a drummer, uh, percussionist in Puerto Rico, and over the years, I mean, he has been very successful. He still plays. He's not as busy nowadays, but he still plays. You know, he's 80, I guess 82, 83,
Hmm.
and he still plays. Back in those days when I was a kid and moving into teenager years, I would go with him everywhere he went, pretty much, which I think is the best school ever.
Right.
You know, he was he was back then pretty much, and still, it's respected and considered one of the best drummers or most busy drummers from the island. That came from the island, and I mean, many artists that he played, he would do. There was a back then there was a show um, at noon. I mean, there still is. Again, it's. I guess that it's customary to have a show in the like mid noon um, entertainment show, like a Tonight Show, but it happens at noon. So basically, he was the drummer for that show. So he would go in the morning. And I would not do much of that because I would be at school, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So he would go and do that show, and he would come home, and sometimes he would go straight to a session, and then from a session, a 3-4 hour session, he would go, and he did for like 30 years, Jeff. He did
Wow.
the hotel scene, where many names. I mean, everyone from like Frank Sinatra to Sammy Davis Jr. All those guys will come down to do like a sit down for like, I don't know, let's say 2 weeks or a month. So he would be the drummer because they would just come in and they would play with a house band, from
Right.
one of the hotels. Um, so he was able to do that because the main reason was because he's always been a really good reader, and that was obviously one of the requirements. You got to know how to read. And he played old styles, big band stuff, everything. He would cover everything. So he was, in a nutshell, that's how him and Alex met, Alex Acuna. And Alex lived in Puerto Rico for 10 years. And I know I'm trying to cover different angles of this because there's
Yeah.
so many stories, but that's how I connected with Alex. And when I came here, I did not know Alex. I knew who he was because of the weather report, um, his history, weather report, and all that. But my dad and him and my dad were not connected. We're not. I mean, they're friends because they were friends back in the day, but
Right.
they were not actively connected. So when I came here to study, to go to Musicians Institute, I finished the year and I was so burned out because I was working full time here for the airlines. That was the job that actually catapulted me here. but I had to go to school and work for the airlines. And I was sleeping like 3, 4 hours a night, you know.
Whoa.
I will finish my shift at American Airlines at midnight. I will go to my pad, take a shower, eat something, go to MI and practice overnight all the way to like 7 in the morning until many times I would like literally just crash. I couldn't, take a half-hour nap there in my booth, go to class, finish around noon, go back to work. And
Oh man.
all this, so Alex heard through one of the teachers at MI that I was who I was because I have connected with that teacher. Alex, I went and saw him play with his band, The Unknowns, at Le Cafe. Do you remember Le Cafe?
Was that on
On Ventura
Ventura
Boulevard.
Boulevard?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So one night I went, man, I was so burnt out. I said, man, I'm just gonna go and listen to a band. I don't even know who was playing. It happened to be Alex with his band. Alex saw me, he recognized me, we talked, he gave me his number, we connected. From that point on, that was 1993. From that point on, he's, everything that I've done, pretty much I owe in a way to Alex. It's connected, directly connected to Alex. And so Puerto Rico, so my dad and Alex were friends, back then. So I didn't do much playing because I left when I was 21. I had, we played in high school, we played in bands, but my direct connection to music back then was because my dad was, the guy there. And I can boldly say this without, because everyone said, you ask anyone and they know what he's
Well,
done and what he did.
you're a master percussionist, and we see all of that stuff behind you. And this is what I was wondering, since your dad was a set drummer, is that how you learned? Did you learn to play the set first or percussion first?
Well, that's an interesting question. First of all, when you say I'm a master percussionist, man, I don't consider
Well,
myself a master percussionist.
me you are.
But hey, that's how I earn a living that way. So hey, I guess.
Well, listen. From a layman's terms, you're doing the incredible soundtracks on percussion, dude. Okay, you're a master. Come on, you're hanging out with
Anyway,
me and all those guys. Come on.
anyway, so let me clear that part out.
Okay, all
Um,
right.
uh, uh, he. This is what I always say. You come from a culture that is so rich, musically speaking. It's so rich, man. I can call my sister and I can put a conga drum in front of her. She can play it. She's never taken a lesson. It's all here.
Right.
So you come from that system where music is so integrated to the actual culture of the country, and like you go anywhere else, like India, the same thing.
Hmm.
You go to just pick South America. It's very engraved, and so him being a drummer, and he played percussion too. His main thing, I mean, he can play any instrument, basically any percussion instrument. But the one that he got called the most was for drums. So that's the one that I really, from him, I got a lot of that. The
Hmm.
percussion side of things, it was Jeff, is because, again, like I said, my sister, you can bring any of my sisters up and put a drum in front of them and they can play it. And that happens to the majority of people in Puerto Rico, again, or Cuba. Take Cuba, same thing. It's very engraved with the culture.
Well, you interested, or it's interesting that you say about the culture, because in the early '80s, I worked, or '82 to '84, so I worked on a cruise ship,
Okay.
and and some of us musicians. And Wayne Bergeron was one of the guys I worked with him.
Ooh,
Right?
man.
It, and but
Wow.
here's it. We would take a radio and go up on top of the ship, and we would try to get stations from Cuba. Did I say it right? Cuba? I mean, is that how you say it? Cuba?
That's
It's not
not,
Cuba.
you're right. I said Cuba, but
Oh,
you said it right. You said Cuba, which is
right.
right. Yeah.
So it's like saying ukulele, ukulele,
Ukulele
ukulele.
or ukulele.
Yeah, right. So, so anyway, we would try to tune into radio stations because our sense is the only way to get that feel and that authentic feel is you have to feel and hear the music itself from where it originates. Right?
Man, it
So,
has to be. Yeah, it's not impossible to be able to, as an outsider, to be able to connect and get the flavor, get the
right.
actual. But it would help. It would help a lot if you come from, again, you don't have no necessary. A lot of great musicians nowadays, you put a lot of time into studying the culture
Hmm.
and eating their food. I think
Right.
that's really important, man.
Do
to
you
be
like
able to to be able to groove like those guys, you gotta eat their food.
right? So, well, I took lessons from a guy one time and we were talking about some of those different rhythms like sambas and stuff. And he said,
Right,
if you really want to feel the feels, you got to get inside their head.
right.
What are they feeling? What's the emotional state of those people? Are they feeling oppressed? Are they sad? Where does are they happy? What is the feeling behind that groove? And
That's interesting, man. That you asked that because I can legit. How do you say this? I'm
legitimately,
yeah. I am originally from Puerto Rico. I was born, and I lived all my childhood and all my teenage years, and I moved when I was 21.
yeah,
So I lived everything from the moment I was born till 21. It was there.
yeah,
So I can tell you, to answer that question, I can tell you the feeling itself is actually not that complicated because when you play, you just playing from the heart.
right.
So feeling wise, man, you're just enjoying it. It's happiness, it's relaxation. But you're not really thinking.
Mm,
You just playing from the heart, which, if anything, that would be the one thing I say that would be the difference between a native one, someone that was born and raised in an island, like, or in
hmm.
a place like Puerto Rico or Cuba, and someone who has not. You can still achieve, I believe you can still achieve the same level of understanding and the actual how the music would sound,
Hmm.
performance of it, but there is a difference. You know, like for me, I'm not Brazilian. I can play Brazilian music and I can play it and understand it. I do, because it's somewhat connected.
Right.
But those Brazilians, man,
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
it's a whole different level. And I can, like I said, I can hang, I play all the instruments. I understand the concept. I know all the patterns. But there's the one thing: I am not Brazilian, and
Mm,
that's the only thing that sometimes you can tell. Sometimes you can tell, and some people. That's the reality of this.
right. Well, and one other thing that I'm thinking about, and then I want to move on to something else. But
Cool.
when I was trying to emulate the laid back feel that people would say that Count Basie had.
Hmm.
So when you listen to Count Basie and that band he had back in those days when they were saying it was laid back,
Right.
it was a feel. They weren't people that didn't really understand it. They would think laid back instead of feeling it.
Feel it back.
Right. So what would happen is they think, oh, I got to play behind the note. And next thing you know, they're dragging.
There's a big difference, man.
Right. But you understand what I'm trying to
Oh,
say, right?
totally, totally.
and it was just a feel that that band and those people had, and it wasn't, they weren't thinking I'm going to play behind the note or whatever it is. It, you know, it,
The thing is, and you said it right. The moment you start thinking,
yeah, right.
it's over. It's over. Yeah, it is. I mean, that's how it works. The moment you start thinking of feel, it's over, because then it's gonna read that, or it's gonna be received that way. It's gonna record that way. You're thinking too much. You're like you say, you're dragging now because you're thinking you. That's the feel, and it's not at all.
Right,
It's feel. You gotta feel it. You
right.
can't think it. But
Right.
great way to explaining it and putting it.
Yeah.
Um, but I have to, at least if we're gonna move on, before I move on, I want to say I do agree, and I know of a specific, you know, there's a breed, there's a group of people out there that, man, they're really good, and they've been able to get to that point of making it sound traditional and making it sound like, the real thing. And they are, man, they're doing a great job. There's a handful of names out there. Um,
You
but
know,
that
those guys make me mad. Is, oh, play Brazilian. Ka-chong, ka-chong. I'm like, damn. What could, okay, play funk. Oh my God.
I have to say, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of studying, a lot of hanging with the right people, because again, it's not just memorizing and applying a pattern or anything. It's just it's like we just talked. It's connected with culture. You need to know culture. You need to. It sounds like a joke, but it's the truth. You need to eat the food. You need to go and hang. Spend time and wherever it is, if it's Indian music, you need to go and spend time, there, you
This,
know.
I want to, if anybody ever comes to me and says, when are you going to get a real job? Why don't you get something, what do you want to do with music? Because that's it. And what do you just go out and play on the weekends. I want them to watch this back. I want them to watch this because you are summing up the whole reason why you don't just go play on Saturday, right? And if you get that really good gig on Saturday, you have done something that week to be able to make yourself get that gig.
Exactly,
You
exactly,
know, and there's this whole thing. I grew up in Nebraska where to this day people say, "Have you ever gotten a real job?" They think there's something that's, you know, well, if you love music, you do what you just said. You
that's
go out, you
hysterical,
hang,
man.
you know. Okay, if you want to know what musicians do, watch my interview with Walter Rodriguez because
Hey, man,
he will.
we should rename it, or actually we should name it at this point, because we haven't hasn't gone out. But hey, whatever, it's true. Again, I think it is so important to understand all the aspects. It's not just like you've been saying. It's not just either, oh, I went to Puerto Rico and I spent 2 weeks there, and now I got it.
Well, what'd you do there? Did you talk to somebody? Well, I kind of hung out at the bar. Yeah,
The taxi driver, the cab driver. I talked to him a lot. He drove me around, and it was great.
it was cool, man. It's a cool vibe. It's a cool vibe.
Man, it takes so much more than that. But again, you only do what you can do. I think the most important part is to be aware of it's just giving the respect to, again, it's something that will take many, many, many hours in different areas, and um, like I said, I respect the handful of guys out there that have been able to accomplish that, and my hands off to them, because it takes a lot of dedication, hours, practicing, research, talking to people, hanging with people, traveling there, and
Yeah.
you know,
So now moving into the after you got here and you met Alex, and between then and the time you started doing the movie sessions,
Okay.
what were you playing more of? Were you playing more of the set drumming or more of the percussion stuff?
Well, when I came to MI, the Musicians Institute, I came to study specifically drums or drum set because I wanted at that time Joe Porcaro and
Oh,
Ralph Humphrey were the head.
they were masters. they, they,
And for me, you know, I come my the guy who I one of the main drummers that I followed through my childhood was Jeff. So knowing that I was gonna go and study with his dad, Joe, which by the way, since then, you know, we became friends and I mean the knowledge, eh, the knowledge of those two guys together. I mean, but it's interesting because, in a quick parenthesis, Joe is when it comes to drum set, there are just a handful of guys, and Joe is one of them, who can sit down and explain something traditionally from the very beginning. Um, you know what? I you got a message from somebody's asking if we're doing the 3 o'clock. I think
oh, well, I posted something on Facebook,
they should probably, yeah, they should probably visit that.
so yeah.
Anyway, so what I was saying was with Joe, he's got the patience to sit down. He's got the knowledge,
Hmm.
and he knows how to explain it in a way that honestly, I mean, I have never seen anyone being able to do it that way, and um, such a sweet, you know, he's such a sweet human being. The way he talks to you, he's very like he takes his time to explain something. Um, and he's very slow and very gentle and very very patient. That it really takes no effort, man. It's so beautiful. It takes no effort, and between story and story, you know, he's tons of stories that he can tell you. Um, but at the end of the day, you walk away with a big chunk of you know knowledge, and on the traditional side. Then you take Ralph. You know, Ralph is pretty much an encyclopedia of how to turn the traditional and just develop it into a whole whatever it is, it's style, any style, you know. It could be anything. It could be odd meters, it could be anything. Just pick one, and he will be able to explain it. And you know, they both have books explaining all this, and so that for me that was the best of both worlds. You know, to be able to start with that amount of information, um, and that's how it happened. That was my, you know, I wanted to study drum set. I already knew how to play percussion. And I just wanted to merge those two worlds, which eventually that happened, you know, naturally, I'd say, because then I came here and after school, after I was done with MI, and I decided to stay through Alex. Because Alex is the same way. Alex with his drumming, he's known for merging the two, drums
Right,
and percussion.
right.
So for me, that was like, man, this is great. Does it get any better? You know, having Alex as my mentor and being able to study and connect with him and see this at a close range. Um, that's why for me it became actually a natural thing, and um, it's beautiful, man, because you you develop. It's almost like you develop another language, yeah, where you can play music and express and just just develop it, not just as a drummer or not just as a percussionist, but as a drummer percussionist, you know, and it's a different world.
You know what I'm noticing these days? Guys have started doing more is mixing the two,
Right,
right? Because the smaller acoustic kind of groups that don't really want a set of drums, but they got acoustic guitar and something, they'll do a cajon like you this little setup you have behind you.
right,
Where yeah, right. So you can do almost like a real kit, but at the same time playing percussion.
exactly.
And that man, I can't do I don't I can sit and do a keep the snare hat and bass drum going, but then to pick up a shaker and start thinking about a shaker, I'm like, come on, man. I
Hey,
can't.
man, you said the T word, thinking.
Right.
No thinking aloud. No,
Oh,
but no, that's definitely, and I'm going to add to what you just said, and hopefully not because it's coming from, I guess, people consider it's the truth. If you are a drummer and you want to learn percussion, good, learn percussion, but know that you are first a drummer, and then you're learning percussion.
mm,
Now, vice versa, same thing. If you are a percussionist and you want to play drums, so know that first you're a percussionist, and you're learning. Now, that's that versus people, a drummer playing percussion and saying, "Oh, I am a drum percussion." It's a whole different thing. And I tell you, I'm going to explain this real quick, but you know, people think, "Well, now I can play percussion." But first of all, do you really play percussion? Are you really playing percussion? Not because you're a drummer, that means you're gonna play percussion. You see that, and that's the point I'm trying to make. And it gets cloudy and shady in between, and there's a very sharp line. And you can ask the masters, man. You can ask anyone from Alex to like Joe Porcara to Luis Conte to I don't know any of those guys, and they'll tell you the same thing. If you're a drummer, and you learn percussion. Know that you're a drummer first, and,
right.
and, and consider it that way instead of saying or considering yourself, I'm a drummer, percussionist at the same level. That is really hard. And again, it takes, there's a handful of guys only that can be considered that way. Having said this, I guess what I'm trying to say here is if you're a drummer and you're playing with a percussionist, and check this out, Jeff, it's interesting. Let's say I'm the percussionist and I'm playing with the drummer. So I'm thinking as a percussionist, but I know because I play drums so I know where the drummer I can tell where the drummer's going. So it's my job to stay out of the way because he's a drummer. You see,
Mm.
a lot of guys don't know that. A lot of guys thinking percussionist. I got free ticket to just go out of town, playing fields and it's like what, you know. My job is to support the drummer. So when I'm on the percussion chair, for example, when you've seen it with he's Bernie Dressel. He's the drummer. I'm here to support him. And we talk, and at this point, we don't have to talk. We got to just look at each other or listen to each other to see what we're doing and hear what we're doing. But my job is to stay out of his way unless it's specifically stated, okay, so this is my time to shine, or this is my time to play the field, whatever. But he's a drummer. He's the main. Now, it's all the same way in the opposite. It also applies on the opposite, which is if I'm the drummer, I expect that the percussionist knows that I'm the drummer. And it's funny, man, because some people don't really respect that.
Right. And my feeling is somebody come up and they'll say, "Do you play congas?" And I go, "Yeah, I can stab at them." So you're a percussionist? No,
No.
no,
Yeah,
no.
it's
Just
true.
because I play, but I can maybe play some bongos or something doesn't make me a percussionist. Because if you tell somebody you're a percussionist, they think, "Oh, you can do all that stuff."
Right. And it's a big responsibility, man.
And so, don't you think that a percussionist in a in a regular band setting is more of a color guy, you know, adding colors and
I,
rhythms a
I,
little.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say just a color guy because you're responsible of creating or maintaining a solid groove with the
Mm.
drummer. Yes,
Hmm.
no, you're there. When it comes to the rhythmic part of, of the situation, you're up there with the drummer. What you need to be aware is that the drummer, in a way, has priority when it comes to because the drummer is the main driver. You know, I think about it like if you're driving a bus, the drummer is the driver, and then the co-pilot or a plane, the co-pilot, you know, he should be trained to be able to pilot the airplane or the bus at any moment. But know that you're the co-pilot. See, not the pilot is a pilot, and it also has to do with styles of music and this and that. But for the most part, in general, that's how it works. Um, but
And
anyways, yes, that's that.
yeah, and being a percussionist in a salsa band or something is a whole different thing because
That's a whole different book, man.
there's there's four or five guys.
That's the whole the rhythm section is composed by, like you said, well, normally three, four, sometimes five
Mhm.
guys, you know, and in certain situations, in most situations, I would say, the three guys have or are playing elements that are crucial to the music, to the groove, whatever you know, whatever you're playing musically speaking. So there's a timbalero, timbale player. There's a conga player, and there's a bongo slash handbell player.
Hmm.
Those three guys together, they make one solid unit.
Like a drummer,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah.
exactly. With that, the drummer on a different right on a different situation. They those three guys together. That's why it's so important. I mean, and again, that's a whole different book because if one of those guys is not in sync or doesn't really connect with the other two, you'll notice right away. It's like the drummer playing like playing a straight A, you know, jazz type of thing with the cymbal, and then just going crazy with the left hand, like literally playing stuff that doesn't make sense
I've
musically.
had to fire my left hand before. You're fired, man. Stop playing.
Exactly. So the same idea. You know, those three guys. Then sometimes you have one of the singers playing guiro,
Mm.
which has to connect with those three guys.
Hmm.
That's a fourth guy, you know. And could be someone else playing clave, could be, yeah. But those the main three are those three. And even nowadays, now it's because of maybe you don't have a third guy, so the timbala player has to play his part and the bongo player part with the handbell. So timbala player is playing both, and then you have a conga player, and
Mm.
those two guys they just lock in.
So all of the things we're talking about is really interesting because I want to now lead into what you did with Stomp
Okay.
because now you're doing something even more foreign. You're using your entire body on almost anything, any
All right.
surface to create some sort of percussion sound and rhythm.
Until you get a broomstick in your eye.
Right, right. So when we ended the last time, you told a story, and I'm like, man, okay, let's talk. So you do your thing, and then when did you get the Stomp gig?
Okay, so Stomp was in 2000, the year 2000, which my brother, which by the way, it's worth um, talking for literally 10 seconds, 15 seconds, not he's worth more than that. Obviously, I'm just saying for the sake of time. My brother, incredible, like I said, like you call of anyone coming from the island, most likely is able to sing, dance, play any instrument, percussion instrument, and create a party on it by themselves, basically. That's, you know, so my brother, incredible, I believe, much more talented than I am when it comes to playing. He can play conga or percussion. He can sing. The guy
Oh
can
man, don't let
dance.
him come to LA.
Well, he lived in New York.
Oh
He lived
really?
in New York for about, my guess, about 10 years, and he did a few shows in Broadway. He's a really talented
Mm.
guy. So he was doing stuff at a time. This is the year 2000. He had been doing stuff for, my guess, is about a year and a half. Uh, and then he said, "Hey," he called me one day. "Hey, they're holding auditions for the San Francisco tour, meaning sit down tour. And would you be interested? I know you're in LA. You're pretty close. So is this something that you've been to? You just got. We had just actually, when he called me, we were about a month before getting married. So I'm thinking, okay, San Francisco, we're getting married. I think I'll try it. It'll be fun. Oh, by then it was only a 3-month run. So
Oh,
I
okay.
think I can disconnect from LA for 3 months, and if I have stuff to do, I can come back and go back and forth. So I said, yes. We get married literally the day, it's incredible. The day we came back from honeymoon, I got the phone call from Luke, Luke Cresswell and Steve McNicholas. They're the two creators of the show, and they call me and they say, "Can you be here next Monday?" We came back from our honeymoon on a Thursday. I remember. "Can you be here on Monday for an audition?" I say, "Yeah, why not?" So I drove Monday morning to San Francisco. Got there a quarter to 12 noon. Did my audition. Got in the car and drove back.
Well,
And I got the spot. And at that point, man, it was Stomp is it's a whole different world, man.
so were you having to dance and jump around and do all that kind of, acrobatic kind of stuff? Because I
I
want to
I
get
never did
room in the
that
guy.
before that. I never and did. I knew how to play,
Yeah.
but dancing and acting, because you got to act. You got to. That's all included. I never did any of that. Obviously, you watch other performers shows, in the past, and you learn a lot. There's a lot of learning,
Yeah.
and then incorporating the playing to all that you're learning. And by the way, you have just a couple of weeks to learn a show where everything is based out of numbers. Each number, each scene is, you have a number, as in you're number 4, or you're a number, or in this section of that scene you're playing the 2 and, but then you switch to 4, and then this section you're playing. I mean,
Okay. I'm already confused.
well, for example, very simple. Let me give you an example, and not to give up anything. It's I think it's brilliant what they've done, and to the level that they've done it, that there shouldn't be anything weird about sharing this. For example, there's a number called hands and feet, right?
Hmm.
And besides the fact that the number is a pattern that you create by almost like a tap dancing, but it's not. A lot of people call it tap. It's not tap dancing. This is stomping, and so there's a pattern between your feet and hands. Song,
Hmm.
Don't go back to go back to go that. I'm on carpet. I would do it right now, but I'm on carpet, so it won't.
Yeah.
While you do that, basically you're playing 2 and 4 in your hands. Go back to the rest is on your feet.
Hmm.
But then it gets to a point where you play the same pattern, but now you're playing a different line on your hands while the pattern on your feet is happening. So, or there are run ups or run downs, and the number were, on the run up, you're number 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or
Oh, I get it. So everybody in the line is like notes. Okay, so
exactly.
this is one E and two E and
Or
or
yeah, or
something
one,
like
two,
that.
three, four, five, six. Right, exactly.
I got you. Okay.
So you gotta. It's all about memorizing all that,
Oh man. I'm,
Yeah, and the beauty of it. Okay, here's the thing. I'm a challenge guy. I love challenges, man. That's me. The beauty of this is that you learn music, you learn how to read music, how to read specifically drum notation, and all that. And the way they put the show together has nothing to do with that. Not it's like I said, it's all numbers. There's a number of I mean, some of it, very little. It's, you know, one and two and three and four. There's a number of pipes. So one and two, let's say I'm one and, so one and two and three and four, one and two and three and four, one and two and three. Now it goes around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1 and two and three.
Oh man.
So it's changing. It's constantly changing. So yes, your knowledge to learn how or to know how to read music helps, but you have to disconnect to that and you have to apply yourself to how they wrote the show.
To me, it almost sounds like a whole different kind of music and way of performing.
It is.
It's not really, it's rhythmic, but it's not really music.
No, no, it's not musically uh, written. Like,
Right.
you know, and even to, you know, I learned the show, and then later on I found out that there was a script for the show. And I said, well, wait, how come I didn't get the script from the beginning? And then because the show has evolved from what's in the script, you know, so much. It's completely, and finally I was able to get a hold of a copy of the script. And it's true, it's nothing to what we did. I mean, it's just the idea of
I see.
of what's in the show.
So I want to hear the story about the broomstick in the eye and the guy got the stick through the hand. I mean, come on.
Okay, so the guy with the stick through the hand is Luke. Luke he's the one of the creators of the show.
So this. Let me just make this clear. You guys are really up there jumping around with things in your hands that if you do something wrong, they can be like a weapon.
Man, let me tell you this. This pretty much sums it up to what it is. Stomp is like everything from music to obviously acting to like ad-libbing on stage to like putting yourself in a situation that if you're there is because you don't care. If anything happens to you, you just move on. The show must go on. That's the mentality. And basically that was what, if you meet the two guys, Luke and Steve, that's their mentality. Mentality is, you know, I was doing the show. They tell you I was doing the show, and I was doing poles. There's a number with poles, which is a stick about 7 feet tall, light pole, and with a hammer handle, you know, and you do a whole number with that. And at the end of the number, you do a slam with the stick. In his case, he did the slam because he was part of, obviously he created the show, and he was part of the show. He's part of the original cast. So anyways, they were doing this, and he slammed, the stick broke, and it went through his palm. At least that's what I heard. It might have been like sideways. I don't think it was like fully on, but dude, it's like, and the dude just wrapped his hand, and that's in the middle of the show. You still have about another hour worth of show. And I don't know much of the details of it, but all this to say that the mentality of the show has always been, no matter what, you finish the show.
Right.
No matter what happens during the show, as much as possible, obviously, you finish the show. You cut yourself, put a Band-Aid, whatever, move on. You hurt your back. You know, some of the guys, they will get injuries in the middle of the show, man, to the point that you can't walk out. And again, it's a, you know, I guess the way I should put this is like, you're doing it because you want to do it. You don't care about getting hurt. You don't want to get hurt, but know that it will happen and you will finish it. So all this to say, to bring the story of the broom. The first number is called Brooms, you know, and we're doing halfway the number, there's a part where, let's see if I have another. Okay, so I have my broomstick, right? I'm doing my part, and then there's a part of the number where we click sticks like this. So the
Uh-huh.
broom, the head of the broom is right here at the end, but you click sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So on one of those, my broomstick snap or split, and half of the stick came twirling up. Pow! It went right
Oh.
into my eye.
Oh.
So yeah. So it was like I even until till today I remember this in slow motion.
Right.
Wow.
Oh.
Okay, so now I'm like, wow. There are two stage hands, two guys. I mean, these guys are awesome. They know the show from top to bottom. All angles. So I'm on the side of the stage, and Greg, my buddy, he's a stagehand. He's right there, and all I remember was Greg looking at me. His face was like, and he had a flashlight here, and he goes like this, kind of like to shine in my face. And he goes,
Oh no, did that scare you even more?
so I'm like, wow.
Oh,
So I go to him. I literally take 2 steps. I get out. In the meantime, the number keeps going. Now there are number. By the way, they're one person short. So anything that has to do as a group, or even the grooves or anything, now it's either someone in the cast, which I think is amazing. The fact that there are guys within the 8 members on stage,
mm-hmm.
that if anything happens like that, they not only cover their number, but they cover whoever's out. If there was an emergency something, so they cover those 2 numbers.
Okay.
I mean, so now two what do you call it? Character, or two lines or whatever.
Right.
So I step out. Greg looks at me and goes, "Dude, you gotta go. You gotta go." And I said, "Well, tell me how bad is it?" He goes, "Just go, just go." So I'm on the opposite end of the stage, so I have to run backstage. And as I'm running backstage to the other side where the green room is, and my cubicle dressing room is, I'm thinking, okay, wow, I have no idea how bad it is. So I cover one eye and I can see, and I'm running. There's like trusses and props, and also I'm trying to avoid everything. And I cover the other one, and I can see, but then when I uncover both, it's all twisted, and like, oh man, this is not good. So finally, I make it to my green room, my dressing room. I look on the mirror, and I'm like covered in blood. Like everything is like, I'm like, oh man. So I grab a towel and I go to the to the company manager, and I go there, and I knock on his office door, and he opens the door. He looks at me. He's like, okay, let's go. All right, so let's go. He puts me in a cab. I go get in a cab. The hospital, thankfully, was about 3 blocks from the hotel where we're doing the show. I tell the doctor, this is all great, but you need to know that I need to be back on stage and finish the show. And he looks at me and he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm doing this show stomp down the street at the Marines Memorial Hotel. And we're in the middle of the show. I got hit, but you need to understand that part of my commitment to the show is that I need to go and finish the show.
Yeah.
And he's just laughing, man. And the guys are stitching me up, stitches on the bridge of my nose, my eyelid, it was crazy. But he said, hey man, I would say go home, but I guess I should say go and finish your show. So I actually ran back. I didn't take a nap. I just ran. It was all downhill. I remember running. My eye was patched. I came back on stage. I mean, I remember this. It's funny. Walking through the lobby of the hotel, because you get to the theater, you have to walk through the lobby of the hotel.
Right.
I was just like zooming by. I didn't even take the back entrance. I just zoomed by the front. And I had a patch in my eye, and when I walked in right when they were finishing the last number of the show. By then, they had called one of the subs. For the show, there's always somebody on the back, like one more cast member on the back, just in
Right.
case something happens. And these are again guys that know the show, know three or four, or some of the guys know the all 8 parts of the show, whatever, 14, 15 scenes, It's just incredible, man. So he came in and he jumped in, and then he did the show, and then at the end I walked in, and at least I did my part.
Oh my God. I
Yeah.
just, I can just see like running with all the blood and
Oh,
everything.
dude, it was like out
Oh
of a
man.
movie, man. It was like when I
Lord.
saw myself in the mirror, it was like covered, and basically it. Okay, so I cut the bridge of my nose. That was a big gash here, and then it actually went through my eyelid, but it went up because of the angle, so it went up. So thankfully, by this much, it didn't damage the eye,
Yeah.
but it went up to the point. To the point, my wife can tell you this, man. Like a month later, she was still pulling slivers of wood,
Oh.
like we would lift the eyelid, and she go like,
Oh. Oh.
I'm like, man, something's
Oh.
all of a sudden, the something's bugging me, and she would go like, well, let me check. So we would put water or whatever to see if it would come out, and then she would lift the eyelid, and then there was a little tiny piece of wood. Like, oh
Oh.
man.
Oh, it's hurting me just thinking about it. Oh.
But you know what? Again, it comes with the territory, and you need to be aware of that. That happens, and I mean, you're hanging from the ceiling, hitting or bouncing off a wall of literally street signs and all kinds of stuff hanging from the wall. So you're like hanging from the actual ceiling to a harness, and you're pushing yourself away from the wall, and you're like, I don't know, 20, 25 feet up in the air. So this is really, I've found it really interesting and entertaining.
Well,
But
I love the idea and I like watching all the things, like we showed a little bit of what you did with your daughter, washing your
oh yeah,
hands.
yeah, and that
You
comes
know,
out of that,
yeah, it's just fascinating how you can find rhythms. But so, we've been talking for like an hour already.
Oh man.
Right. So, but this actually has been more fascinating for me because we got into the meat of some things, that we
Exactly.
didn't talk about. But
We didn't
so
do any playing like we did
do
last.
that. Well,
Oh, okay.
show us your kit because we've got a better video now and people
Okay,
can
let's do it.
watch.
So because of this, I must say, because of this coronavirus thing, and so obviously for musicians, work has changed to the point where, like, I was one of those that I never had anything set up at home because I had enough work outside, so I would do everything outside. To the point, and I'm being honest, to the point I never did anything on Pro Tools or nothing. It was just I would go to someone else's place. I think it was easier for percussionists or drummers. If you go to someone else, they already have a drum set there, or you just send your drum set and at a studio or whatever, and it's just easier. So now it's completely opposite. There's nothing outside, so I have to do a lot of here, and I've been having to learn. All this to say, I've been actually been working on this project that hopefully will be out soon. Unfortunately, I can't say much about it, but it's basically playing drums or playing drums on percussion. So on a setup where you can hear the elements of a drum set and the percussion, but they wanted video and they wanted to be as accurate as possible.
Mm.
So I had it set up in a way where I'm playing drums and nothing that it's not out there out there already. I'm using a pedal, a DW pedal for specifically to play cajon and play it as a kick drum on the cajon. I'm using a
Oh,
mini
what?
hi-hat.
Where do they make that pedal?
Yeah, DW makes all this. And it's
Whoa.
cool. I moved it this time. Last time I couldn't show you, but I
Right.
wanted you to see it. So
I didn't even know they made one of those.
yeah, and I have a tambourine with a pedal, which is like
Oh
right
yeah, I
there,
see that. Yeah.
and then I have a water bottle to play to use as a conga because I believe it sounds great. It sounds amazing, and for me, water bottle is one of those. I want to call it an instrument. I think it's an instrument that you can get so many different uses out of. For example, use it as a conga, but I have another one that I put some stuff in it, some like rocks, pebbles, and um, marbles, and it's a great shaker, super
Hmm.
loud shaker. So anyway, so that's that. Uh,
You know, Walter, anything you touch with your hands becomes an instrument.
hey man, I'm trying. So here we are. I have a mini djembe from Gombops. The good thing is that the companies that I'm endorsed by, they already have all this. They make it really easy. Gombops, amazing for me, amazing instruments. And the variety. They just came out with this last year with mini djembe, which I think sounds great. DW, I don't even have to say. I mean, DW for me is top of the line on everything. Their hardware and their drums. Um, what else? Oh, obviously Sabian
Hmm.
and Remo making all my drum heads and everything. So everything is quality wise. I can't ask for it anymore. I mean, they've done a great job over the years. So it makes it easier to do this kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So if you have a shaker, and here comes snare drum, right? And then you put a hi-hat, and then you have the other limb for you can play a kick drum. So uh, the cool thing is that then with the same foot that you play in the hi-hat, you can play the tambourine because it's for that pattern it works, right? So I can go. Or if you want to play, some groove, so you play four or five different sounds at the same time.
That was so cool.
You got some drum set elements, kick, snare ish. Then you got some hand drum elements ish. You got your cymbals, your hi hat. You got some, So it's all about combining all this and making it sound like there are two or three guys playing at the same time.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that's a little bit of that. But then for this one project, they wanted, you can overdub all that stuff. But why? When you can do it all at the same time.
You know, you just did what I said I can't do, and you did it like you were chewing gum and eating pizza all at the same time. It's like, come on, man.
Hey man, I've had a lot of time to practice.
That's what you need. Just put a kazoo in your mouth, and then you can do a kazoo while you're doing all that.
Hey man, here's my next one. Playing a didgeridoo.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Anyways, you
So,
circular breathing while you're playing all that.
oh, there you go. You get a stand for that. Get a stand for your didgeridoo.
Yeah. Working on it.
You can be like one of those sax players that play two or three saxes at one time.
Oh, yeah, you're like this playing four saxes. And
Yeah, so get then you can bang something with your head.
elbow.
Throw an elbow while you're playing. Man, yeah, that's what you need. Put something on your elbow and like a got a chicken wing going.
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
you could incorporate a comedy act into all of your, and at the same time playing a badass groove.
Hey man,
Oh,
whatever pays the bills.
I,
No,
oh,
seriously, on a serious now, it's one. Remember at the beginning we were talking about, and just to kind of narrow all this down and give it a finish,
yeah,
uh, combining everything, and I think that's our responsibility as human beings. I mean, not just in music, but in
mhm,
anything that you do. I believe, God has given us talents, right?
right,
And we're responsible to take those talents and just develop them to the best of our effort. As simple as that.
right.
So I keep throwing stuff in, man. I play tabla. Tabla is a really difficult instrument.
Yeah, I have no idea what to watch those guys. I mean, come on, don't you have to use your fingers and all kinds of
Oh
things? Like,
yeah, it's again that's a whole different book, you
oh,
know. But my reality with tabla is I know I don't have the time, and it will take a lot of time and effort to get it developed to that level.
mhm.
That's not my interest. My interest is I learned an instrument that is a whole different new culture. I was blessed in a way, and that's another story. I'm my teacher and mentor, Swapanji Chowdhury. He's the best in the world, and I was blessed in a way to have that opportunity to sit down for a couple of years with him and and study that instrument. And I'm pleased, man. It takes a lot. It takes a lot for to sit down and there's a lot happening on that instrument. But I've gotten to the point where I'm able to record. We talked about this a little bit last time. My favorite Mission Impossible, and there's a groove that Bernie played drums and Dan Greco played some jingly stuff. Alex played hand percussion and I played tabla. And
Mhm.
man, we did it in one take. It was an amazing.
Oh, that's right. I remember that story where he came in and just said, "Play this groove," and you guys
Right,
just
right,
jammed on it.
right. And that ended up being, but for me, that's what I wanted to accomplish with that specifically that instrument.
Mm.
Uh, just being able to simply just play different grooves. I study in depth, but again, if you're not up to or are keeping it, it's really hard. But
So,
again,
so again, I'm going to say this here, and I'm going to say this from now on. If anybody wants to know the life of a musician and what it means to actually learn an instrument and what you have to do, you've got to watch this interview because
oh
I mean,
man,
no, because you summed it up and explained it in a way that any knucklehead that's never known an instrument would go, oh, I understand that now, because a horn player, like, oh, how many hours you got to play to do that trumpet? All you do is just blow it. But the way you described, actually, it makes more sense when you describe,
right.
well, how to play a drum and how to, so this would be a good interview to
Oh
watch in
man,
order.
I'm honored that you're saying what you're saying. At the same time, I'm not saying anything other than the truth. And
It is
any
the
other
truth.
musician out there can tell you,
Yeah.
it's that's what it takes. And
Yeah.
it's just having that in your mind, having that openness and to be humble, man. It takes a lot of effort and knowing that there's always, the sky is the limit on this stuff. So you don't just get there. I don't think it's like, oh, I'm here. I got so much to go,
Right.
you know.
Well, and this is the one thing that I've talked, everybody I've talked to in an interview has been a world class musician, right?
Right.
You, Bernie, Wayne Bergeron, George Shelby, Jerry Brown.
Woo,
I
man.
mean, you guys, come on. So, and not one person has ever said, "Yeah, I just got up and started playing." You know, everybody will tell you, they paid their dues. They worked. They
Oh yeah.
slept in the bus.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it is a life that you choose to because you love what you do, and it just doesn't come overnight.
Man, I don't know if I should be saying this, but I'm gonna share with it. You know, because I
Yeah.
know people do this. While I was doing stuff, I was doing the show, and that's when I was able to meet with Swap and G, my tabla teacher. And honestly, Jeff, what I would do on my time driving, I had my, I was driving back and forth to the theater and to pick up my wife. She would work at the airport in San Francisco at that time. I had one of the drums, one of the tabla, on my while I was driving. So I'm driving. So I managed to actually hold the
No.
steering wheel with this hand while I, got my right hand worked on. Man, I know I shouldn't be saying it, but man, you get to a point that you really the dedication and the intensity, if you want it to become something, if you want that one thing to become something, it's gonna take
True.
dedication.
True, but people would say, okay, so no texting while driving, no tablaing,
Don't
no
play tell
tablaing.
while driving. Exactly, exactly. Well, that was many years ago, so
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah, he doesn't do it anymore, folks. He does,
No, no. If anyone's listening, I don't do that kind. So.
that's not recommended to the kids.
But
All right.
just whatever it takes, man. I mean, obviously, that's a little extreme, but
Yeah. Well, Walter, thank you for doing this again because this video and audio together is so much better, and it does you so much more justice. And
that was a
so,
great idea. Great idea.
and I'm going to put it into my QuickTime movie, and I'm going to edit it and make it nice,
Awesome.
and then I'm going to repost it, and then we can share it. But this has been great.
Hey, man, thank you for the opportunity, Jeff, and I'm sure we'll do it again at some point. I want to
Yeah.
make sure I am, my desire is to share all this, the little bit of knowledge that I've acquired over the
It's
years to
it's
share with
deep.
people.
You've got
I'm not. I used to be not into like a YouTube channel. I'm starting to build all that stuff. By the way, YouTube channel. We can put the link there. Walter Rodriguez one, meaning the number one.
Mhm.
I'm slowly building up to this. Different patterns that I work on. You know, but that's all available. It's been available to me, and it's my responsibility and desire to share with anyone else who's interested.
Nice. And a book,
Hey man,
a video book.
hey man, it's coming.
Nice. You
It's
know,
coming.
I'm too old to try to learn something new, but
It's coming. With chapter number one is do not click broomsticks with
right? don't don't drive and play tablet at the same
conflicts.
time. Don't hit broomsticks so they break and hit you in the eye.
Exactly.
Don't get married and then immediately take a gig out of town.
Exactly. Wow, that's why we talked about that. Anyways,
Okay, so the first chapter is what not to do,
and then we can move on to the things that you want to do.
right?
Right?
All right. So Walter, thank you very much. So I'm going to in post, I'm going to add music and titles after we finished recording
And
this, and it'll be cool.
maybe you can throw some of those videos. Remember?
Yeah. Well, you know
While
what
we
I
talk
did?
about things.
I already posted the one of these
I
the
saw
things you
that.
did
Yeah.
with Yanni. So yeah.
Cool.
So I'll add some of that stuff in too.
Awesome. Awesome.
All right, man. Thanks, Walter. This was
Hey
fun.
man, my pleasure. So
This was
much
really fun.
so much fun, man. So much fun. And again, if you ever have, a day that someone cancel, I can just call me. I'm up for it. I'll do it.
Okay. Well, you don't know what I've been asked to do.
Oh boy. Hey man, I
Hey, I'm
trust you.
sending a sub. I got just the guy.
I trust you. I trust you.
Oh, you
Oh,
know, this is so much fun, and I love when with your sense of humor because that makes the whole thing way more fun. Thank you.
hey man, we gotta have
Okay.
fun and laugh, and
Right?
Life's too short, man. Life's too short for to stress out about things. And
Absolutely.
all
All
right,
right.
Jeff.
Okay, so I'm going to end this, and I will see you next time. It'll be online a little bit later tonight.
Awesome. God bless everyone. Stay safe. We'll see you in the next
All right.
one.
Thanks, Walter.
Yeah.